Good morning, class 9 A and C. Today we will be studying the Russian Revolution. But before starting with the Russian Revolution, I will give you a brief of the first topic, that was socialism in Europe. So in that first topic we studied the age of social change, that how the possibility of change came in the society through French Revolution. The ideas of French Revolution, that was liberty and equality, and we also studied that how the people all over the world started talking about the possibility of change. Everyone wanted change but differently. Everyone wanted that the transformation of society should be brought, but they wanted the change to come differently. Like the liberals, radicals and conservatives. Liberals and radicals wanted fast change. Conservatives wanted slow change. I told you about the characteristics of liberals and radicals and the conservatives. The second topic was industrial society and social change. That how industries were forming, how industrialization was coming. Men, women, even the children were coming to work in the industrial society. They were coming to the cities. What were the problems of that town? The problems of the town were housing and sanitation. And what were the problems of the workers? The problem of the workers was unemployment as well as low wages or long working hours. So society was changing, society was coming towards the industrialized area. Then we studied the coming of socialism in Europe, that how socialism came into Europe. We studied the definition of socialism, then we studied what was the idea behind socialism and why the socialism was becoming popular. Why was socialism becoming popular? Because individual owned property. That is, it was a capitalist society. It was a capitalist society. So individual owned property, and what did individual want? Individual want profits. Individual wanted profits, and for profits they were treating the workers very badly. They were giving low wages, very bad working condition, long working hours. So the workers were very unhappy with the individuals that were industrialists. So workers were very unhappy in that society. That's why the idea of socialism was coming forward. What was the idea of socialism? The socialists believed if society as a whole, rather than the single individuals controlled property, attention would be paid to collective social interests. So instead of one individual or a group of individuals, if the whole society owns the property, then the benefit will be to the whole. The profits will be divided to the whole of the society. So instead of the individuals, the whole of the society should own the property, and the profit should be divided to the whole of the society and not given to the individuals. This was the idea of socialism, that collective social interests should be focused on. So who were the proponents of socialism? Who wanted socialism to come forward? Robert Owen and Louis Blanc. They believed in cooperatives. I also told you the definition of cooperatives. Cooperatives were the society in which the property would be collectively held and profits will be divided according to the needs of the people. So Robert Owen and Louis Blanc were in favor of cooperatives. Then comes Karl Marx and Engels. After Louis Blanc and Robert Owen, Karl Marx and Engels added to the ideas of socialism, that it should be the workers are exploited, so they should come forward and fight against the industrialists, strike against the industrialists. So Karl Marx and Engels added to the idea of socialism. After this, support of socialism. Who supported socialism? By 1870s, the ideas of socialism was spread all over the Europe. The idea of socialism by 1870s was spread all over the Europe. Workers in England and Germany started to make unions. forming association, and till 1940 they won some parliamentary seats. So the workers started forming associations and they collaborated with some league parties that followed the socialist ideology. So in Germany and France they were following the ideologies of socialism. They won some parliamentary seats. The parties won that was following socialism, but they didn't form the government. They didn't have enough seats to form a government. I hope this is clear till now that support of socialism, the workers of Germany, France and all over the Europe were making associations, were making unions, and they were colliding or coming together in alliance with the parties, the local parties like social democratic parties and all. And they were winning some parliamentary seats, but very few parliamentary seats, so they were not able to make the government. Like in current period we can see that BJP is in the government. BJP is in the central government, but Congress also has some of the parliamentary seats, as well as AAP has some of the parliamentary seats. So even the socialist parties had the seats, but the government was not of socialist parties. So now coming towards the main topic of today, that is Russian Revolution. So continuing with the Russian Revolution, I will give you a brief idea of the Russian Revolution and then we will start with the book so that you can get a deep understanding of the topic. Because Russian Revolution is very important, it is sometimes a little difficult to understand. But here I will give you the brief, you will understand the concept and then we will start with the book. So the Russian Empire, which was under the monarch Tsar Nicholas II. Who was the monarch at that time? Tsar Nicholas II. During the 1914 period. So after that, the fall of monarchy in February 1917. In February 1917, the monarchy fell. Socialists took over the government through October Revolution of 1917. And what happened in 1917? The socialists took over the government in Russia. So in Europe, we saw that the socialists were able to win parliamentary seats. But they were never able to make any government. They were never able to make a government. They just won a few parliamentary seats, but never made a government. So in Russian Empire, what happened? That it was under a monarch, that was Tsar Nicholas II by 1940, and the monarchy fell in 1970, February 1970. In the same year, through October Revolution, the socialists took over the government. And thus, in Russian Empire, the socialist government was established in October Revolution of 1970. So it is very brief idea that what will happen in the whole chapter. We will study about the October Revolution. We will study about how the monarchy fell in February 1917. The second topic of this is the Russian Empire in 1940. So before starting how the monarchy fell in 1917 and how the socialists took over the government in 1917, we will start with this. That how was the monarch, who was the monarch, how was the Russian Empire, what were the areas in the Russian Empire. So we will start with that. The Russian Empire in 1940. So the Russian Empire, as I told you, Tsar Nicholas was leading the Russian Empire. He was the monarch, he was the ruler of Russian Empire, and he had the sole authority over the whole area. The Russian Empire also had some of the small European countries like Lithuania, Armenia, Uzbekistan, Finland, some parts of Poland, even the Central Asian, some parts, Ukraine, Belarus. So under Russian Empire, there were many small parts of Europe also. Russia was there of course, but also small parts of some of the European countries and Central Asian countries. What was the religion that was followed in Russian Empire? It was the major religion was Russian Orthodox Christianity. They followed Greek Orthodox Church. The empire also included, because it was a huge empire that included Russia as well as some of the Central Asian countries and European countries. So it also had Christianity, it also had Catholics, Protestants, as well as the Muslims, as well as some Buddhist communities. So we saw what was the Russian Empire. It included some of the countries of Europe and Central Asian countries, some parts of Central Asia. It included Russia as the main country. Then the Russian Empire, the religion was followed, the Orthodox religion of Christianity. Now coming towards the next topic, economy and society. How was the economy of that time? How was the society of that time? We will move forward to that. The economy and society. This is an important topic for us to understand the Russian Revolution. So we will start with the economy, that how the economy was of Russian Empire. It was an agriculturalist society. Why was it agriculturalist society? Because 85% of the people, 85% of the people were engaged in agriculture. They were doing agriculture. Cultivators produced for the market as well as for themselves, for their own needs. So the farmers also produced for the markets as well as for their own needs. Industry, now we study about the agriculture. Industry, how was the industry at that time? Industry was in some factors only. That is, only some areas had industries, big industrial areas. That is St. Petersburg as well as Moscow. St. Petersburg as well as Moscow had big industrial areas. But industries were not in all the areas. So in other areas, craftsmen were producing major part of the production. Major part of the production was done by the craftsmen. The railways in 1890s, what happened? In 1890s, what happened? The railways started expanding. As well as foreign direct investment came into Russia. That is, the other countries started investing in Russia, in the industries of Russia. So that the industries expanded, industries increased. Railway expanded because transportation is easy now, and foreign direct investment, that is, many other countries started investing in Russia. That's why industries expanded. That's why industries became more in Russia. Coal production increased. Iron and steel production increased. Coal production increased double, and iron and steel production increased quadruple, like 4 times. Coming to these growing industries, now this was about the industry and the agriculture area. Now what about the workers that were working in that area? What about the people that were living in that industrial areas? So most industries were private owned. Like in the previous topic also, I told you that the individuals own the property. Single person or a very small group of people own the property. Because Russia has European countries. Russia is somehow a part of Eastern Europe. That's why the condition was same of the workers and of the people. So private people owned the industry, and the workers were very downtrodden, or we can say they were very depressed. They had to work long hours. We will study in the book that in small industries they had to work for 15 hours or 10 hours, and in large industries they have to work for 10, 12 hours. So the workers had to work very long hours, and the wages were minimal. The wages were very less. Thus the workers were very unhappy with this situation. The private people owned the land, private people own the industries, and what do private people want? They want profit. And for profit, they made the workers work longer hours, very long hours, as well as they gave very minimum wages. After this, now you will say that what was government doing? The government or the ruler was not doing anything for the workers. The rules were made that they had to work for only particular hours, they had to be given minimum wages, but the rules were broken by the industrialist, because the government employees were not doing good job. Thus, the rules were broken and the workers were made to work long hours and the wages were given very less. They were made to live in small rooms. In one room, like 10 or 15 people were made to live. So the accommodation where they were living also was very bad. So in a single room, there like 10 to 15 workers were made to live. Small dormitories were there, very small and very bad areas. So I hope you understand the economy, that why the people were unhappy with the ruler or why the people were unhappy with the society of that time. The property was owned by the private people and they only wanted profit. What do an industrialist want? Profits. They made the workers work longer hours, very long hours, 10 to 12 or 12 to 15 hours. The wages were very bad, very low, and they were made to live in a very bad condition. That's why the workers were very unhappy with the ruler of that time and with the situation of that time. That's why later on we will study that how the revolution came. It came because the people were unhappy. When do people want change? When they are unhappy with the situation. So we studied the concept of economy, the economy of that time, how was it? Now we will come to the society. How was the society of that time? So when industrial areas were set up, workers from village started to come to the cities and they started living in the cities near the industrial area so that they can find work. The metal workers, now the workers are divided by skill. So the metal workers were in a higher category. Like they were given like more privileges than the other workers. And they also had a little higher wages than the other workers, the physical workers or physical laborers. So there was division in the workers. Like some were getting more wages, some were getting higher conditions, better conditions, and the others were getting very bad conditions, very low wages. So the condition was different and the labor was divided. But when it came to strike, to say that we are shutting down the industry, to say that we won't work now, then all the workers came together. Like if one state is fighting against another, like Chhattisgarh is saying that they don't like Uttarakhand, but at the same time Pakistan attacks. So they both will come together to fight against Pakistan. So there is division inside the country or there is division inside a community. Still, when the outside of the community comes to fight, they will work together. Similarly, the workers were divided, but when it came to fight against the industrialists or fight against the government, they always came together to strike. Now, this was the condition of that time, that how workers were divided by skill and how they came together to fight against the industrialist or to fight against the government of that time, the ruler of that time. The women, what was the condition of women at that time? Till 1940, 31% of the women were working in the industry. They were paid less than men because it was considered that a woman can do less of physical labor. That's why they were paid less than men. I told you about the division, that how they were divided. This was the society of that time in the urban area. Now, the society in countryside. This is the last topic of today, that how the society was in countryside. We studied that how the society was in urban area. Now, how the society was in countryside, that is village area. the land was owned by nobles. But the land was owned by nobles. Who are nobles? We studied about the nobility in French Revolution. The nobles are the people that are very close to the ruler. So the nobles own the land, but the cultivation is done by the farmers. Like the workers, the farmers were also divided in different groups. Some were earning more, some were earning less, some had land, some didn't have land. So in Russia, except in few cases, the farmers were very against nobles. They didn't like nobles. The farmers never liked nobles, they were against nobles. Like in French Revolution, we saw that the farmers were supporting nobles when they were fighting. The nobles were supporting farmers and the farmers were supporting nobles. In French Revolution, we saw that there was a cordial, a nice relationship between farmers and the nobles. But in Russia, it was opposite. In Russia, the farmers didn't like nobles. They were very against nobles. Why were they against nobles? Because most of the land was owned by nobles. And the farmers had to cultivate and only get some percentage of the production and the profits. So they were very against nobles. That's why nobles get the land only. Why we can't get the land? Russian farmers wanted the lands of the nobles. That's why Russian farmers didn't like the nobles. Now the last point of this is Russian peasants or the farmers were different from the other European farmers. How were they different from the other European farmers? Because they were natural socialists. Now you say how they were natural socialists? Because what do we study in socialism? That the resources are collected and then they were worked upon, like the resources of the land or the industry was collected, and all of the people will work in that and gain the profit according to the needs of the people. So the Russian peasants used to do that. They used to collect all the farms. Like we said that there are this much farms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 farms. They collected all the farms and all the workers, all the farmers used to work there together, and the profits were divided according to their needs. The profits were divided according to their requirements or needs. Like if you have a bigger family, you will get more of the profit. If you have small family, you will get according to that. So the profits were divided according to the needs or the requirements. And the whole area was collected, the farms were collected, and then they were worked upon, and the profits then were divided according to the needs of the people. Okay, so this is the last topic. That's why they were called natural socialists. Here I will end this topic. Russian Revolution. I think economy and society is a little important, so you have to understand it very carefully. I will teach you the same topic from book also, so that you can understand each and every line very carefully. I hope you understand the natural socialist point. This is a little important. The Russian peasants used to collect their land and then they used to farm on it. Like now there is no division. They will collect their land and farm on the whole land, and whatever the profit is, whatever the production is, they will distribute it according to the requirements to all of the workers. Like if there are 50 workers working in it, all of them will get a percentage of profit according to their needs. Okay class, so we will start with the book now. Start with the topic, the Russian Revolution today. In one of the least industrialized of European states, this situation was reversed. What was the situation in other European countries? That the socialist parties or the socialist people were able to get the parliamentary seats, but they were not able to make a government. Socialists got control over the government in Russia, while a country that was least developed, industrialized European state, that is Russia, in there the socialists were able to control over the government. Though the October Revolution of 1917, through the October Revolution. The fall of monarchy in February 1917 and the events of October are normally known as the Russian Revolution. When the monarchy fell down in February 1917 and after the events of October, the Russian Revolution was known. How did this occur? How the socialists were able to make the government? What were the social and political conditions in Russia when the revolution happened? To answer these questions, let us cite at Russia a few years before the revolution. So we will study that what happened before the revolution. The Russian Empire in 1914. In 1914, Tsar Nicholas II ruled Russia and its empire. Besides the territory around Moscow, the Russian Empire included current-day Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, regions of Poland, Ukraine, Belarus. It stretched to the Pacific and comprised today's Central Asian states, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. So all the current-day countries of Europe, many of the small ones were in the Russian Empire. The major religion was Russian Orthodox Christianity, which had come out of the Greek Orthodox Church. So what was the major religion in Russia? It was the Russian Orthodox Christianity. In last videos, I told you that in Christianity also there are many sects, many different beliefs, many different churches that people follow, like Church of England. Here, the Russians followed Orthodox Christianity, that is, which had come out of the Greek Orthodox Church, which the empire also included. Russian Empire also included Catholics, Muslims, Protestants and Buddhists. Catholics and Protestants are a part of Christianity only. And then Muslims and Buddhists were also found in Russian Empire. Now the next topic is economy and society. How was the economy of Russia? How was the society of Russia? We will understand these two things in this topic. At the starting of the 20th century, the vast majority of Russia's people were engaged in agriculture. Nearly 85% of the Russian Empire's people earned their living from agriculture. So nearly 85% of people are living on agriculture, are earning their money from agriculture. This proportion was greater than in most European countries. In Russia, most of the people are dependent on agriculture. This proportion, this percentage, 85% was greater than in other European countries. For example, in France and Germany, the proportion or the percentage was between 40% and 50%. So in France, 40% of the people were engaged in agriculture, and in Germany, 50% of the people were engaged in the agricultural activities. In the empire, peasants, that is farmers, produced for the market and for their own requirements. Russia was a major grain exporter. So in the Russian Empire, the peasants or the farmers are producing for the market as well as for their own requirements, for their own use. Russia was a major grain exporter. It was exporting what? Grains. Industry was found in packets, that is small areas or in different areas. Big industrial areas like St. Petersburg and Moscow. Craftsmen undertook much of the production. There were only a few packets, a few areas where the industries were growing, like St. Petersburg and Moscow. In other areas, craftsmen were doing the most of the production. Huge factories existed alongside craft workshops. There were huge factories in some of the areas which existed alongside or side by side of craft workshops. Several factories were set up in the 1980s. After 1980s, more factories were set up. When Russia's railway network extended. Why the new factories were set up? Because now transport was easy, the railways network extended, and foreign investment in industry enhanced. Foreign investment started coming to the Russia, as well as the railways started expanding. Coal production became double and iron and steel output quadrupled. Coal production became double. Now they were able to produce double of the coal, and iron and steel output were 4 times from before. I hope you understand foreign investment. Foreign investment is that when the other countries invest in your country to open up industries, to open up factories so that they can earn the profits and make production. By the 1900s, in some regions, factory workers and craftsmen were almost equal. By the 1900s, many regions where the factories were developed, their workers and the craftsmen were almost equal. Like in the previous topic also, we studied that the liberals and the radicals owned most of the industries, and most of the industries of that time were the private property of the industrialist. Government supervised huge factories to ensure minimum wages and limited hours of work. So government was supervising so that the workers can get at least the minimum wages and work only the limited hours of work, like 8 hours or 6 hours. But factory inspectors failed to prevent rules being splitted. But for this, government set up many factory inspectors so that they look after the factories and the workers. But the factory inspectors couldn't look after so many industries and couldn't prevent the rules from being splitted. In small factories, the working day was sometimes 15 hours compared with the 10 to 12 hours in huge factories. The minimum hours, the limited hours that they had to work ranged from 10 to 12 hours, but in small industries, the workers had to work for 15 hours. Accommodation differentiate from rooms to dormitories. Most of the workers were living in small dormitories, small rooms. Workers were a divided social group. Some lived connects with the villages from which they came. Workers were not organized at that time. They were divided. Some of the workers lived connected with the villages from which they came. Others lived in the cities permanently. Some started to live in the cities only. Workers were divided by skill. A metal worker of St. Petersburg said, metal workers considered themselves aristocrats among other workers. So that means that metal workers had higher authority than the other workers. Their occupations demanded much training and skill. Metal workers are the ones that are working on iron or other metals. So their occupation, their work demanded much training and skill. Women made up 31% of the factory labor force by 1914. By 1914, women started working in a vast majority. But they were paid much less than men. That is between half and 3/4 of a man's wage. Like if a man is getting 100 rupees per day, the woman will get only half, that is 50 rupees, or 3/4, that is 75 rupees. Workers represented divisions among themselves in dress and manners. How the skills and different things will be organized. The difference between the workers can be seen through the dress and the manners in which they were treated and they treat others. Some workers made associations to help members in the times of unemployment and financial hardship, but such associations were very few in number. So some workers made the association so that they can help the fellow workers if they become unemployed. In spite of these divisions, workers united to strike when they disagreed with employers about work conditions or dismissals. As the workers were divided in different social groups, different workers had different areas and different skills, but in spite of all these divisions, workers united. Workers became one when they had to strike, when they disagreed with employers about work conditions or dismissals. These strikes frequently happened in the textile industry during 1896 to 1897. The stopping of the work happened mostly in textile industry and during 1902 in the metal industry. In the villages, peasants cultivated most of the land, while the crown, the nobility and the Orthodox Church had huge properties. Peasants too were divided like workers. They were also deeply religious, but except in some cases they had no respect for the nobles. They were deeply religious, so they followed the Orthodox Church, but in some cases they had no respect for the nobles. Nobles taken their power and position through their services to the Tsar, not by local popularity. Who were the nobles? They were the family of the ruler, Tsar Nicholas at the time. So the nobles had the power and the position, not by their services or by the local popularity, but how they were treated by the Tsar, how they were to the Tsar. This was unlike France, where during the French Revolution in Brittany, peasants respected nobles and helped them in battles. During the French Revolution, what happened? In France, the peasants respected nobles and helped them in battles. In Russia, peasants desired the land of the nobles. In Russia, they didn't respect the nobles. They didn't wanted the nobles to be there. They wanted the lands that the nobles had. Often, there were many a time when they would not pay the rents and even murder the landlords. In 1902, this occurred on a big scale in South Russia. And in 1905, such incidents occurred all over Russia. They were very, very unhappy with the nobles, as the nobles weren't selected by the people, and the nobles got their position just by servicing the king, that is Nicholas at that time, ruler of the Russia. So Russian peasants were also different from other European peasants in another way. They collected their land together for a definite period and their commune divided it according to the requirements of individual families. How were the Russian peasants different from the European peasants? The Russian peasants used to collect their land together for a definite period, for a time of period, and the commune, the smallest administrative unit of that period of their time, divided it according to the requirements of individual families. For example, in the diagram you can see that this is the land. Small peasants have small lands. So what do they used to do? They used to combine all the lands and then farm in the bigger land together. And then the commune, the smallest administrative unit of that place, smallest administrative of that place, used to divide the profits or the whatever that was produced in the individual families according to the requirements.